Welcome to this episode of Alive and Thriving. Today, I am excited to be joined by a special guest, Jada de Goey Teatini-Climaco, who is an expert in rising early and mastering your morning routine. In this episode, we will dive deep into the benefits of being an early riser, as well as practical tips and strategies for building that morning routine that's going to work for you in the season of life that you are in. Whether you are a night owl looking to make a change or someone who already loves waking up with the sun. So you are not going to want to miss this insightful conversation. Now, let me introduce you to our guest. Jada is a long-term lover of living a big and healthy life. She is a mama of 3 boys. She owns a Latin dance studio with her husband where she has taught for over 12 years. And up until a couple of years ago, she was a CEO and marketing manager. Jada's passion now lies in supporting women to live their fullest lives through the Rise and Shine Collective, which currently focuses on guidance, support, and training to instill the habit of early rising and optimizing your morning routine to best support your days, life, and big business goals. Now, the Rise and Shine Collective came about through those crazy COVID days where Jada felt a calling to share everything that she'd learned about rising early and the way that some of the most influential, history-making business titans and creatives start their days to generate and protect their energy, their attitude, and their edge. Jada initially struggled to instill the habit of early rising for almost 2 years, and even though she knew in her soul that it would change her life, the missing ingredient she felt was live accountability and support, so she decided to create it. Jada now offers live guided online early rising and morning mastery programs for women who are go-getters wanting to use their mornings powerfully. So let's dive into this episode. This is going to be one gold conversation and I can't wait for you to meet Jada. This is Alive and Thriving, where we tackle all things that stand in the way of holistic well-being and self-care in life and as women in business. Join me for real and raw conversations and inspiring guests who are expert in their fields as we come back to life together, overcoming stress, anxiety, nourishing our mind, body, and emotions. I am your host, Jessica Reed, alternative therapist, life and wellbeing coach. And if you are ready to grow, heal, and thrive together, then you are in the right place. Jada, welcome to Alive and Thriving. How are you today?
I'm really great, Jess. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm really excited for this conversation. I believe there is so much gold in early rising and so much to gain from being able to master your mornings, something that I haven't managed to achieve yet. And so I'm really looking forward to having this conversation today. Now, in my introduction, I sort of let our listeners know a little bit about who you are, a little bit of your background. But I'm wondering if you'd like to share a little bit more of your story, how you got to where you are, maybe even what inspired you to become an early riser?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you've already shared a little bit of my background and a little bit of what I'm about. Mama of 3 boys, busy business owner, all of those things. So, what really inspired me to look at becoming an early riser was just a really deep desire to for a few things actually, one of which was to have more time and space, quiet time and space to myself, as a business owner and a mum of 3. That was a really big driving factor, and that I wanted to implement a whole bunch of habits into my life regularly that I wasn't getting time for at all. or wasn't finding the time for, or thought I didn't have the time for,
Yeah.
through the busy days. So I had notoriously been a late night person. I would go back to work after the kids were in bed. um, Often like to sleep in once I could do that a little bit with the kids. So that I was not an early riser. And so I just wasn't finding the time in my days. I'd wake up literally with kids on top of me. I'm sure people can relate physically,
I
not just
can.
kind of
Mine are here
demanding, but
today. You
literally
might see them.
on top.
You might see them run in
Background.
and interrupt us. So I understand.
Oh, yes, yes. So, like, I'd wake up for me in the bed, want this, want that, get them all organized, off to school, kindy, straight into work, all the demands of running a business, all day long, straight to pick up, straight home to
Mm.
the evening routine, all the way to through to kids in bed, and then back to work again. And so I just didn't have time, or I wasn't giving myself time. I was in that
Mm.
pattern of just go, 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 give, give, give. And I was just getting really burnt out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, at some stage it kind of came to me, I'm like, I need to like switch things around and become an early riser, and get up before the kids. I knew some of the benefits of it and things like that, but it
Mm.
was really just driven from a desire to have that time and space to myself, to be able to think, to be able to exercise more regularly. I
Mm.
wanted to start meditating. I wanted to, journal. I wanted to get to all those books, podcasts, business courses that I had lined up and piled up, to learn more, and develop myself. And yeah, just really have that thinking time and space. So yeah, that's what really drove me to look into becoming an early riser. But I didn't really achieve it straight away. I found it very
Mm.
difficult to get started, but that's
Yeah.
really where the desire came from
Yeah.
originally.
And so, since you have become an early riser, and I know we can talk about, your journey to getting to that point because you said it didn't happen instantly, but I'm just curious, what has mastering your mornings, I guess, allowed you to achieve in personal life, but also in business as well?
Yeah, sure. So for me, there's been huge benefits in both sides, really. So personally, I just feel calmer, through the days. I feel like I have started my days on my own terms, so I can kind of set my mood and my mindset. It still gets triggered sometimes, but I just find that I'm more responsive rather than reactive, through with my family. And I have actually more energy, because you wake up feeling really tired, but if you use your mornings really well, the way that you feel 20 minutes, 30 minutes after you've woken up is entirely different to how you felt when you woke up. So I just find that it gives me more energy for the days. I It's almost like there's just this extra magical glow for me when I'm doing that. It's kind of like, I don't know, just the world seems more magical and special. It kind of just has a residue effect through the rest of the day. So yeah, it's really improved, my energy, being more centered, more focused. It helps me be more productive because I use the mornings to also plan out my intentions for the day. And I also find that it helps me, just regulate, I guess, different emotions and things that I'm going through, because I also do different journaling and things like that. So it has kind of multiple positive effects for me personally. And then on the business side, uh, again, there are layers. I think, obviously more productive and proactive about how I'm spending my day. So I am focused on kind of the most important things first, rather than just letting my day run me.
Yeah.
I tend to be more focused on how I'd like the day to go, and more proactive about the things that I prioritize, because I've already set those intentions. And it's almost like, because I've already done a whole bunch of healthy habits, it's kind of that flows into the other things that I tend to do throughout the day, as well. So, and more confidence as well. I think just from
Yeah.
spending that time by yourself and uninterrupted, you kind of rebuild, and doing particular kinds of exercises. It's like you rebuild your own internal compass,
Yeah.
or keep coming back to it, and also your own, like, to rely on yourself and your own, ability to resolve things or work through things, or even do challenging things. Like, just the fact that you've gotten out of bed when you didn't feel like it, that you've done a workout first thing in the morning, that you've done some of those things, helps you then when you go to do other challenge, potentially quote unquote challenging things through the day as well. So yeah, I just find that there are so many benefits to it.
Oh, absolutely. And, something that came into my mind while you were talking then, was that so many of the things that you are doing, I guess from my perspective in the work that I do, are regulating your nervous system and setting you up, in a state where you're not operating from a state of stress or a state of fight or flight, which I guess in terms of both your personal life, but if we're talking about business as well, or just, productivity at work, or throughout your day, you are starting your day from a space of being emotionally regulated. You're starting a day from a space where you're going to be able to engage your logical mind to do the things that you
Mm.
need to do, which you can't do when you are starting your day from a space of stress, from a space of go, go, go. It's just not possible that way. So far, I mean, you're selling me on this. So far,
Yeah, I mean,
sounds like a
it's
pretty good idea.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm totally here to convince people, but no, like, it's one way of doing things. And, I've got a good friend. She's like, "You're never going to get me rising early." I'm like, "That's cool. It's not for everybody. That's okay." But certainly there are, huge amounts of benefits to it. And I mean, if you look up all of the benefits, if you do any research around early rising, or the people who do it as well, so many of the world's leaders, in business, creatives,
Yeah.
world leaders, history makers, and etc., are and were early risers for a variety of reasons. And they have different types of routines and things like that they might do. Some people do it mostly because they want to spend that time doing their biggest kind of life work,
Yeah.
because you're most, um, fresh, your brain is fresh in the morning. Like, there's so many different reasons to potentially do it.
Mm.
And so optimizing your morning to match your kind of life goals and business goals is really ideal, I find.
Yeah.
But yes, there are so many benefits to it that are kind of layered on. Yeah.
Mm. Was
And
there
what you
anyone
find is
sorry.
there's a kind of almost, no, you're right. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna ask if there was anyone in particular who inspired you to get into this or who inspired you along the way of your journey?
Yeah, and not initially. Like, there wasn't a particular person who I kind of went, "Oh, they're an early riser. I really want to be like them." It was just kind of something that I just felt like would be the right thing for me, and it
Mm.
just built and built and built kind of to
Mm.
this really deep desire and knowing in myself that it could and would change my life dramatically. Like,
Mm.
I wasn't sure where that was leading me or anything like that. And yeah, the journey has been a struggle. So not easy, but it just got deeper and deeper, this desire. So there wasn't a particular person who kind of inspired that.
Mhm.
But yeah, along the way, the person probably I've been most inspired by in relation to their philosophy, their actual morning routine that they teach, and which I actually base like the structure of the morning routines that I teach around as well, is Robin Sharma, who wrote the book The 5 a.m. Club.
Mhm.
Lots of people know about that one. And the reason I love it is because it's really holistic. It's around focusing on not just your mindset, not just your physical health, not just your emotional health, not just your, spirituality and things like that, but actually bringing all of that together. So it's a really holistic way of creating and generating, support and growth, for both your life and for your business. So for success in a holistic way, because I'm
Yeah.
definitely all about that. Like, I've done the whole big burnout running a business
Mm.
thing. I'm
Yeah.
not keen for it anymore.
No,
And I
no,
believe
it's not
there's
a
a
nice
different
place
way
to
to go
be.
about it. No.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Oh, my head wants to go in two different directions. I want to ask about health benefits and circadian rhythms because we
Mm-hmm.
discussed that briefly on our Instagram chat the other day. And I think that that is something that is also worth mentioning
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to early rising. So, for someone who's not sure what that even means, are you able to explain the benefits of actually rising with the sun?
Yes, sure. To my,
To your
layman's
understanding.
terms and knowledge, like I'm no expert or doctor or anything like that or sleep expert, but from all the study that I've done, and often the, exact, I guess scientific terms and things, run out of my head in these situations.
That's okay.
But
No, we
yes,
don't
your
we don't need
circadian,
scientific
we
terms.
don't need that. I'll explain it how I see it, how I feel it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So, I mean, our circadian rhythms have to do, I guess, with our body clock, is how we often refer to it. And, as people who live in the modern world with electricity and all that kind of thing, we're kind of out of whack as far as, I guess, the natural, day and night quite often.
Mm.
And I certainly, have been and was. So, yes, our body clock or our circadian rhythm is, our body being in a rhythm or a cycle. So, if you've always tended to go to bed later and wake up later, that'll be kind of what the rhythm that your body is used to. And so that feels uncomfortable to break that and change it. But we were talking a little bit on the Instagram live as well in relation to serotonin and, sunlight hours and all that kind of thing. So there's a few things in relation. Like oftentimes in the evenings, a lot of us spend a lot of time on screens, whether that's, scrolling once the kids are in bed to try, relax a little bit, watching something. But the blue light from screens really mucks up our circadian rhythm a lot. And so it's like our body can't tell even whether we're tired or whether
Yeah.
it's kind of time to start winding down. Like we stay in this heightened state.
Mm.
And that's why it can be hard to go to bed as well.
Yeah.
So we kind
Because
of
it can
stay in
interfere
this
with our
really alert
melatonin, can't
state.
it? The blue light, it can interfere with our
Yes, that's the
melatonin
one.
levels, can't it? Yeah.
Melatonin.
No, that's
Yes,
okay.
yes,
Melatonin
that's
is
right.
formed from serotonin, so you need them both.
Yes, yes,
You
yes,
absolutely need them both to sleep.
yes.
Yeah, no, you're right. So when you are waking with the sun, you are helping to actually help your body to live in that natural cycle of that day night cycle that we're really designed to be living in, which I guess in turn is going to help your sleep quality, I imagine. Um,
Yes.
yeah, okay, cool. No, I just thought I'd ask about
Yeah.
that. I'm
Yeah.
curious
Well,
to.
I think, oh,
Okay.
sorry.
No, you go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say one of the really big things that helps with in relation to when people talk about early rising, in fact, helping potentially with the quality of your sleep and how much in being rested when you're sleeping is that the ideal is to get into a regular sleep pattern, at least for most of the time. And this is where some people get a bit of a concern, but we can go into that in a sec. But part of what helps your quality of sleep in relation to being an early riser is that you have a more set routine generally of when you go to bed and when you wake up.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it helps your circadian rhythm as well adjust because if otherwise you're going to bed at all different times, you also don't really have a particular set thing. So your body doesn't really know and isn't really in a pattern to get that rest. And so it can take you longer to go to sleep, or maybe your sleep isn't as good a quality and etc. So one of the things that helps that whole rhythm and is therefore kind of, I guess, a positive outcome of being an early riser is in fact to do with that you're being more regular with your bedtime and more regular with your waking time.
Mm.
And that in and of itself helps with your sleep quality and it helps with you getting into more of that pattern.
I can imagine too with cortisol levels, which we obviously need to be able to get up and going in the morning, they naturally rise. My understanding is around about that sort of 5 a.m. sort of mark, and they start to spike from there. So if you are up and you are working with that natural spike in cortisol, and you're working with that natural rhythm from Mother Nature, and what your body, as again, is, I guess, designed, I guess, in some way to do. I imagine that too is going to impact the way that you are feeling in terms of stress and things like that, because you're utilizing your cortisol and those sorts of things in the way that they are meant to be used at a time that they're ready to be used as well. I imagine. You
Yeah,
mentioned challenges as
absolutely.
well.
And
Sorry, Amelia
yeah,
has come up.
absolutely.
Can you hear that phone?
Okay.
Can you hear her game that
I,
she's playing? Okay, good. Sorry.
that's all good.
The joys of
That's okay.
being a working mum when your kids get gastro
Absolutely.
again for like the fourth time in about 6 months.
Yep, I get it.
Yeah. So you
Mm.
mentioned challenges. I know you said that you had your own set of challenges along the way, and I imagine that you also have challenges from people that you've worked with as well. So would you like to share with us a little bit about the challenges that you faced setting your morning routine and getting into that sort of, I guess, mastering, being able to commit to it regularly, all the things. But then what other challenges do you notice that women in your circle face as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the reason I had a little giggle around the regular sleep time, that was I tend to fight systems, even though I know they're good for me. And time after time, I have prove to myself that if I just follow them, things are actually really great. So for me, one of the biggest challenges was, in fact, the evening and going to bed earlier. As I mentioned, I was a late night person for all my previous life, and it still is the thing that I will most easily fall off the wagon with. If life gets really busy or different things come up, and so the evening and also, I think that sense of, oh my gosh, like I'll never be able to go out with girlfriends for cocktails or, date night, or, am I going to be a total, quote, nana, and not be able to, have a life and things like that if I become an early riser. Like I've got to go to bed, super early all the time. And that was certainly a worry for me. And I know it's something that people bring up with me as well. So no, you don't, you don't have to, go to bed at 7 p.m. every night and never go out and have fun in the evenings. But when you are looking to set up and instill the habit of early rising, it's a very good idea to be as consistent as you can with your bedtimes, and also to create a bedtime and an evening routine that supports your desire to get up in the mornings. So, working out how much sleep you need to have, working out what time you want to get up in the morning, and working out the types of things that will support you to wind down and have that more restful sleep in the evenings, and kind of stick to that, kind of trigger you into that same habit. So, if people are worried about, never being able to party anymore at night time, it's not that, you need to let all those things go to be an early riser. Um, Not in my books anyway. So, you could choose, for example, what I tend to do is I'm an early riser 6 days a week, generally speaking. And then I give myself like a rest morning. Sometimes I do still get
Mm.
up early on that morning, but otherwise I'll kind of, do that after one of the evenings. I might have a later night in the week, for example. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, the evening is one of the biggest, most important parts, and people kind of sometimes skip that and just go to the morning, which I did for ages. But
Yeah.
it's actually about getting your evening time and ritual organized. And it's not that you need to do a huge, huge long ritual in the evening. But yeah, getting that in place is something that's really helpful. And for me was a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And sometimes is a concern that I hear. Yeah.
So it's a real holistic picture. It's not just I'm going to wake up earlier, so I'll set my alarm earlier and I'll just be up earlier. It's actually setting yourself up for success right from the nighttime, right from sort of working backwards and getting that holistic view on it. I love that.
Yeah, it's, I guess, creating a bit of a new lifestyle. Like for me as well, I was concerned about losing my me time that I usually had
Mm,
in the evenings.
mm,
If I wasn't going back to work, then that's when I would get some time to myself or to just
mm,
chill, and you're tired and you feel like you've had a busy day all day. You just want to watch an episode or two or something. But what I found is that there's different qualities of me time. And so at
mm.
first I would really crave that kind of zombied out kind of like, on the couch watching something. And
Yeah,
sometimes I still do that. That's
yeah.
cool. It's
And
nice to do
sometimes
that sometimes.
we need that sometimes, don't
Um,
we? That sloth mode.
totally.
I had a mentor say at the
Exactly.
beginning of the year that trust happens when you're in sloth mode, when you're able to just surrender and let go. So sometimes,
Mm,
particularly if you're being run down or unwell, or just ongoing stress, that zombied out, perfect. But as you said, there are
exactly.
different qualities of
Yes.
me time, and
Mm.
that's not always going to be the right form of self care.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's being gentle with ourselves as well.
Mm,
All of the habits that we have up until now, well, they took a lifetime to build. And then sometimes we expect that we're going to form a new habit or way of living like really fast, but we need to be gentle with ourselves also in making changes in our life. And maybe it'll be one step forward and two steps back. And also with seasons. And we, touched on this in our live on Instagram as well, understanding seasons of life. And I think this is
mm,
particularly pertinent for us as women and women in business or, in careers and things like that, is that we have a lot of different seasons in our life,
yeah.
whether
And
that's our monthly
cycles. Yeah.
cycles, whether
Mm,
that's, children. There's a lot of other things that pull our attention and our energy, and being aware of that and kind to ourselves around that, and making sure that we're kind of balancing that desire to be really productive and going after our goals and our dreams,
yeah.
and also being kind with ourselves around that stage that we're in, either in the month or in our life.
Yeah. So when you teach or coach people through, teach them how to implement these things. So I know you have a free program that I believe is running this week at the moment, an experiment week, which we can talk more about a bit later. But I'm just
Mm.
curious, when somebody comes to work with you and you coach them through, what are the sorts of stages that you work through, in terms to, obviously without giving the gold away, but I'm just curious, what are the stages that someone would work through with you if they were to be looking at becoming an early riser?
Yeah, well, one of the first things that I take people through, which I do in this experiment week, as well as when they start working with me, is to really dig into why. Like, what is the really deep core reason that you want to become an early riser? And it can be a little bit different for everybody. Maybe it's similar, but it needs to be you need to get really in touch with your personal deep reason, because there's kind of no getting around the fact that it's just a hard habit to change. And that's partially because there are layers of habits that you're breaking and layers of habits that you have to rebuild to become, an early riser as a new lifestyle, as a regular thing. So, having a really deep understanding of your personal reason, it has to feel really important for you, because when that alarm goes off in the morning at a time that feels uncomfortable to wake up, or maybe you've gone to bed a little bit later, or you're in a busy season of life, and that getting up in the morning is going to support you and make you feel all these great things, but you feel tired at the time, and all those little voices start going at you. I know mine were like, oh, you deserve rest, you work so hard, oh, you went late to bed later last night, all the things, your reason has to be stronger than those things. And yes, there are like tips and, tricks and strategies and stuff that we can definitely go through and all that kind of thing. But your reason, your deep why, has to be
Mhm.
stronger than the difficulty of it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first things that we look at. And it's like so many things in life, right? You need to really attach any big change
Mm.
that you want to make. You need to attach it to a feeling that is strong enough for you to actually go through the discomfort of making the
Yeah.
changes.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so right. And I know as adults too, with the education behind it and then the connection to your why, we will be more likely to make those changes. And as you said, sit through that discomfort if we are understanding of how we personally are going to benefit to it. So uncovering
Mm,
your why in that aspect and being able to connect with that emotionally and mentally and just knowing that there is a purpose behind, this discomfort that you're going through potentially if you struggle to get up early in the morning.
yeah.
That is so important. Is there any advice that you would give to someone? I'm just wondering, someone like me at the moment who snoozes their alarm. Like I can't I feel like I can't help it. I honestly do. I feel like I can't help it. And I'm a 7 times snoozer. Like I don't even know it's going off for the first hour anymore. So what advice I guess would you give to someone like me who's like, "Oh my God, I can't even get up for my any of my alarms over an hour. Would I even be able to do this?" What sort of advice would you have?
Well, first of all, you're totally not alone, and that was me. Lots of people do it. So that's a good thing to just kind of go, "Oh, it's not just me."
Mm,
Um, it's going to come back to the night before and what you're doing the night before. It's going to come down to what's your real reason for wanting to get up? Like, is it strong enough? Have you gone into that deeply enough to know why you're even getting up? And also, do you have a plan?
yeah.
So we've talked a little
Mm,
bit about, the night before. We've talked a little bit about, knowing your deep reason for wanting to do it. But it's also really important to have a plan. And so certainly there are optimized routines and inclusions for your morning for a holistic approach to, success in life and business and supporting yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, all of those things. But also in that personalizing it so that the things that you're including are aligned with your reason for wanting to do it
mhm.
and having a plan of what you'll actually do in the morning. So one of the questions I get a lot or I guess comments is like, "Oh yeah, I managed to get up, but then I didn't really know what to do with the time. So
Mm.
I just ended up scrolling on Instagram or I just kind of some people will say, "Oh, I just kind of sat there and had a cup of tea." And honestly,
Yeah,
that's actually fantastic
yeah,
because one of the really important things about that time is to just sit and contemplate life. It
yeah.
is to disengage from the busyness of life
Mm.
and just turn inwards and
Yes, yeah.
reflect on your big life goals, reflect on the person you want to be, reflect on things that are going well in your life, reflect on, how you want your day ahead to go. So having that time to turn inwards and having that quiet time away from all of the distractions in and of itself is super powerful and is really important to include in your morning routine. And so it's kind of an intentional sloth mode, I guess, but when you're kind of fresh in the morning and you're using that really magical time of the day as well. So if that's all you're doing, honestly, it will do great things for you, but you can definitely add some other things to level up the optimization of your morning routine. So yeah, having a plan is also really important. And when you're talking about, support as well. So figuring out what do you personally need to do for yourself to support your desire to
Mhm.
be an early riser and to do those specific things in the morning? Like, what does support from yourself
Yeah.
look like? And so, like, it's good to dig into that. And then also, what support do you need from significant others in your life as
Mm.
well? Because I've had people reach out to me and say, "Oh, like my husband or partner is a night owl. They go to bed really late. I don't know how I'm going to be able to, do it because we usually spend time together in the
Yeah.
evening. Then we're going to miss out on our couple time after the kids are in bed and things like that. That can be a concern for people, or just simply that their partner doesn't really um, support them
Yeah.
making that change. And again, that can be because of the partner's expectations or what they think it's going to look like or whatever that is. So support is really important, both figuring out what support looks like from yourself and what support you need from the significant other people in your life. And that doesn't have to just be your partner, it could be a group of friends, could be your family, and digging into that so that you're actually setting yourself up for success as well. Because I think oftentimes, whatever it might be, whether it's early rising or another habit we want to change in our life or something we want to go after, sometimes we don't really tell people. We either don't tell them or we don't tell them why it's actually important to us. And then they don't really understand. They just see you changing and you're becoming this different person to who they know, and they don't understand why. And they might have resistance to that. So, you know, setting up those support systems for yourself. And there's some simple things that I suggest around that, and enlisting other people in a way that they will understand is also really important.
Yeah, and you talk about support. I guess something I love about what you do and what you offer in terms of your experiment week, in terms of the way that you work with women in this space and other programs and things that I'm sure you offer, um, is that support is coming, like that support is available through you as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in fact, that was the driving
Mm.
factor, I guess, for creating the Rise and Shine collective. Like, having struggled with early rising for such a long time myself, I would find that if I committed to doing an early yoga class, I would get up
Mhm.
and I would go. If I was going to go for a walk with a girlfriend, I would get up and I would go. You know, anything like that, I would get up and go when I'd committed to somebody outside of myself.
Yeah.
And when I would set the alarm for myself, I would hit snooze. um,
Hello.
and so, yeah. And so, like, even though I'd built all these different things and it just took so much time and having to build all these things around, yeah. So the idea came to me, I'm like, well, other people probably struggle with this as well. And while I can find all the rituals and routines and, you know, information about forming the habit and ideal optimal morning routines and, you know, all online, of course, we can find all those things, but there wasn't anything that I found that offered the accountability, like the live accountability and
Mhm.
support.
Yeah.
And so really that's where the Rise and Shine collective came from as a starting point, was to offer that live guided um, support and
Yeah.
accountability, because it's the support and the accountability pieces that all the knowledge doesn't give you. And
Yeah.
so for me, they were kind of the missing ingredients that I felt would have sped up the process and made the process so much easier. And, you know, it's like
Absolutely.
anything in life, when you surround yourself with other people who are kind of on that journey too, or you surround yourself with people who are a few steps ahead or already, you know, successful in that area. Um, and oftentimes, when we actually invest, like when we pay for something or we commit outside of ourselves,
Yeah.
then we are more likely to actually show up and commit to
Yeah.
it. So there's a lot of layers around how that kind of helps us. And that's really what my programs are designed to do, is provide that live support, guidance, accountability, and
Yeah.
connection with other people on the same path. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that too because given that, every person is going to come in with their different personal challenges and their different seasons of life, so they can have that tailored support from you as well to make, that morning work, not just in a, here's a strategy, follow it from A to B, but let's make something that works for you and actually, something that's going to be implementable within their own lifestyle. So you have an experiment week running this week. Tell me a little
Yeah.
bit more about experiment week. What does that involve? Does that mean I'm getting up at 5 a.m. tomorrow? Like, what? Tell me about experiment week.
You could if you like. No, you don't have
I
to.
could perhaps if my eldest didn't throw up all night last night, I could get up tomorrow at 5 a.m. I think if you're watching this
Yes.
Zoom video, you're going to look at this and be like, has she slept? And the answer is no, actually.
Yeah.
So
So, you know, after a night like that, sleep, my friend, sleep is important.
that
And, you know, but
self-compassion.
being an early riser, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Being an early riser is not about having a lack of sleep. Just let's get that straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the experiment week is all around giving you the opportunity to learn and take action on. Basically, I'm sharing my top rituals and routines, tips, habits, information, actions
Mm.
that I feel are most supportive when you are looking to instill the habit of early rising
Yeah.
and also optimize your mornings to support your life and business goals. And so basically, I'm teaching three workshops,
Mhm.
and in those, I'm sharing a lot of that information. And there's also action through those workshops. And the idea is to then implement what you're learning through the week while you're, as a collective with other women, also experimenting and trying it out. So gradually, we'll add more information. And you can practice implementing what you're learning, and that ideally comes through to then experimenting with rising early,
Yeah.
and putting that into practice. But we don't just start bang, get up in the morning. So as we've talked through today, there are a few different steps. And so we will go through some of those different steps, like really digging into your deep why. We'll actually facilitate that through the first workshop. Also looking at evening routines, what to include in your morning routine, all of the basis of all of this, looking at what support does look like for you and
Yeah.
how to implement that for yourself and with the people around you. So many of the core factors that we've talked about today, I'll be sharing in more depth and also with actionable steps
Yeah.
in the workshops. And then you can gradually put those things into place throughout the week while you've got my support, my guidance, and also that support of doing it as a collective with other women in the experiment week.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a challenge, except for I didn't want to use the word challenge because it's already a
It's
challenge to wake up
already a
early. So I
challenge.
thought, well, let's just experiment with it.
I love
Let's
that. No, I love
experiment
that
with it.
because that
Don't
takes the
challenge
pressure off.
yourself. Yes,
Yeah, that takes the pressure off. That sort of makes me feel like, okay, well, if you had set an early rising challenge, I know for my brain, I would have been like, no, thank you. No, life's challenging enough right now. I don't need another challenge. But I love that you can just dip your toe in and see, if it is something that you can, I guess, start to bring some safety around exploring when it comes to making those big changes in your life. Now, as this episode goes to air, it is the week of the 27th of March. So this experiment week is happening now throughout this week. So if for anybody who is listening beyond this week and they are like, oh, I want to early rise, what can they do?
absolutely. So I do also run programs, and one of those will be coming up from mid-April.
Mhm.
And I run only a couple of those throughout the year. Mostly, I try and work around daylight savings so that more of us in Australia are on the same time zone because I
Yeah.
live in Queensland and we're kind of the odd ones out. So I run actually live programs where I am there with you every morning to guide you through a morning routine that is really
Oh.
powerful to help set up that habit,
Mhm.
because habits take a while to form. And
Yeah.
so often people fall off right at the beginning stages, but it actually takes time to form a new habit. So I run programs to help either give you a bit of a kickstart or to help you fully instill the habit of rising early and optimizing your morning.
Yeah.
So you can find me, I guess, on my website, which is
Yeah.
riseandshinecollective.com.au. I'm also on Instagram at the Rise and Shine Collective, and Facebook with the same. So
Yeah.
you can reach out and we can have a chat about why you're wanting to do it, what your goals are, and I can let you know how I might be able to help you.
Perfect. And I've linked in the what do you call it? The notes below this episode.
Mm.
I've linked all of Jada's socials and website as well. So if you're listening and you think, oh no, I missed the free, because it's free, by the way, the free experiment week.
Yeah.
If you've missed that week, that's okay. Still go on, say hi, reach out and, have a look at what other support might be out there so that if this is something that you want to start bringing into your life and I guess gifting. I see it as a gift, like you're gifting yourself this time, whether it be just for that mental space and reflection, or whether it be for an exercise journey or an emotional health journey or a holistic mental,
Mm,
emotional, spiritual well-being perspective,
mm,
it's a
mm.
gift of time. Like I know for me as a mum, and yeah, as you've probably seen today with my little one coming and throwing a phone in my face while we're trying to record, which is the only time that they get it when I'm like, oh, I really just need to focus for about half an hour. But you know, you need that me time is not something that you often get. And I know people say, oh, you know, there's everybody has 24 hours in a day and everybody has the same amount
Mm,
of time. But I know sometimes, particularly when you're busy, maybe you're running a business, maybe you're working full time, maybe you're doing both. And
mhm.
maybe you add kids into that, older or younger, they all have demands.
Yeah. Oh, they do.
Yeah,
They do.
that time can genuinely feel like sometimes that there just isn't the time there because your attention is being pulled in every direction. If you are somebody who is a night owl who is looking to make a change, or you're somebody who already enjoys waking up with the sun, will this experience be beneficial for both both ends of the scale?
Well, possibly, yeah. So, I mean, if you're a night owl and you're looking to make a change, this experiment week or my programs will really help you to switch your habits to
Mm,
becoming an early morning person for whatever reason that is for you. And if you're already an early riser, what you can get out of it is optimizing your mornings to match, I guess, your life, your business, career goals
mm,
so that you're using your morning in a more optimal way to support you if you don't feel like you already are. So
perfect.
if you've already got a routine and you're an early riser, well, awesome. I don't think you need me. But if you want some help in optimizing that, or you just want to connect with other people who are also
Yeah.
doing it as well, because it can be lonely, which is part of the benefit. But
Mm.
also, when you're looking to instill that or through different phases, it can be nice to be doing it as a collective as well. So, yeah,
Absolutely. Oh, Jada, this has been such an insightful conversation and best of luck with Experiment Week and to everybody who is joining Jada in Experiment Week as well. I hope that you can experience all of the magical benefits of early rising and I would love to actually hear about them too. So I'm going to keep my eye out on your stories because I'm sure you're going to be sharing wins and things from people who are joining in.
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me today, Jess. It's been a real pleasure and it's so lovely to chat with you. All of these things, I'm sure we could just chat and chat for hours. So, thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you. I think it's perfect timing. Amelia's just lost her marbles. Thank
Perfect
you.
timing, mum
Perfect
life.
timing. I know, Mum Live. All right. Thank you so much for your time.